What's up everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Persona Overview. In this series, we analyze the party members from Persona 3, 4, and 5 in terms of their affinities, stats, skills, and any unique mechanics they may have in order to determine how they should be built and utilized in the party. As per usual, our focus will be on the newest version of each game, those being Persona 3 Reload, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal, but we'll briefly go over the differences between the new and older versions for each party member. These videos will be gameplay focused, there shouldn't be any major spoilers if we can avoid it, but as always, we recommend to watch your own discretion, especially for a late game party member like Sumi. If you haven't played a Persona game before, we highly recommend giving the series a try. This episode will be focused on Kasumi Yoshizawa from Persona 5 Royal, who goes by the codename Violet in the metaverse. Her first persona is Cendrillon in the Faith Arcana. Sumi technically first awakens to her persona during the events of the 5th Palace. She's usable immediately afterward at level 43, but only for a short scripted battle. She appears in another scripted battle during the 6th Palace arc, though you still cannot freely place her in the party. Sumi does not permanently join as an actual party member until the 3rd semester, when she returns to level 75 during the final palace. This gives her by far the shortest availability of any Phantom Thief. Rank 1 of the Faith Confidant unlocks automatically near the end of May, long before she joins. Only the first 5 ranks can be completed before the 3rd semester, and you need to reach rank 5 before the late December deadline for the remaining ranks to become available. This is not a requirement for unlocking the 3rd semester itself, and therefore gaining access to Sumi as a party member. To unlock it, you need to reach rank 9 in Maruki's Confidant by November 17th, after which rank 10 will be obtained automatically.
Taking a look at Kasumi's affinities, we see that her persona Cendrillon has a weakness to curse attacks and a 50% resistance to bless attacks. This makes sense since of the magical attacks that she does have, all of them are bless focused. The one major palace she makes her appearance in, there are a fair amount of enemy shadows who are weak to bless, but also a fair amount who have curse attacks, making the matchups in said palace a bit volatile in nature. Regardless, since it's technically her debut palace, the matchups generally lean in her favor more often than not. As for her Showtime, just like Akechi, she only ever has access to one, and unfortunately it's the last one to be unlocked. You have to max out her Confidant throughout the duration of the 3rd semester and then go to the Phantom Thieves hideout on January 20th or later to trigger a cutscene. This of course has to be done before the palace deadlines as well. Afterwards, it will be available to be used throughout the remaining duration of the game. While it is one of the last ones to be unlocked, at the very least it's still a very nice looking Showtime, being titled Dances with Thieves. Once it's unlocked, it's available for the rest of the game, and will always be able to trigger even if Kasumi is on the bench, since Joker will always be in the party regardless.
Taking a look at Sumi's stats, her HP is pretty average while her SP is noticeably low. When she permanently joins level 75, she has 478 HP, and this features 556 at level 99. This puts her around the middle of the party. It is a decent amount for a character who uses physical skills, and it's at least above Haru in that department, but it's definitely a cut below the other physical attackers. Her SP starts at 211 and only reaches 246, which is lowest in the party, even slightly below Ryuji. This means you do have to be a little careful about repeatedly using her bless and support skills during longer stretches. Moving on to her attacking stats, her strength starts at 55 and reaches 71. This is the 3rd highest in the party, only behind Yusuke and Ryuji, and is easily the more important attack stat of the two. Her magic starts at 46 and reaches 61, tying Akechi and placing her around the lower middle of the party. It is perfectly serviceable and good enough for hitting bless weaknesses, but alongside her low SP pool, her physical damage is clearly meant to be the main focus of her kit. Moving on to Sumi's other stats, her biggest weakness is definitely her endurance. It starts at 36 and only reaches 47, which is the lowest in the party, even below Morgana. Combined with her average HP, this makes her one of the more frail party members whenever an attack actually connects. Thankfully, her agility is the complete opposite. It starts at 51 and reaches 67, which is the highest in the party. This lets her act very early in the turn order, which is great for setting up her critical support or trying to score a knockdown before the enemies get a chance to act. Lastly, her luck starts at 44 and reaches 58. This is the 3rd highest in the party, only behind Morgana and An, and it complements the high critical rates in her skill set. Overall, Sumi has a very min-max stat spread. Her low endurance makes her a bit of a glass cannon, but her high strength, agility, and luck are exactly the stats she needs for her fast, physical, and critical focused playstyle.
Kasumi's persona trait is Veil of Midnight. This trait gives your party members a chance to not be down when their weakness is struck, when they are crit by an enemy shadow, or when they suffer a technical hit. The chance for this trait to activate is 25%, and when it does trigger, the party member hit by the attack will not be knocked down, while denying an enemy shadow their one more, which can prevent rapid snowballing for the enemy depending on the situation. It's important to note that while the knockdown is prevented, the party member will still receive full damage from the crit, weakness hit, or tech hit. If they are brought to 0 HP, this personal doesn't do anything to save them from that fate, as any party member who runs out of HP is forcibly knocked down until they are revived. This ability is decent with its main strength being that it's serviceable in any team comp. While other strong traits are best suited for certain party compositions, there is really no specific team that this trait would benefit more than the other. Unfortunately, the rate of activation is the main drawback of this trait, as 75% of the time your party member will just be knocked down like normal. As such, it's usually better to play around the weaknesses of your party rather than banking on this trait activating. Overall, this trait is solid and has flexibility given any team would appreciate its effect. However, it's not common enough for an effect of its strength, and I can't really give it as much praise compared to some other traits.
Before Sumi becomes a permanent party member, the game briefly lets you use her in 2 scripted tutorial battles. Her level 43 First Awakening skill set includes Koga, Makoga, Tempest Lance, and Heat Wave. Koga and Makoga deal medium blast damage to one enemy and all enemies respectively. Tempest Slash deals minuscule physical damage to one enemy 3 to 5 times, while Heat Wave deals heavy physical damage to all enemies. During the casino sequence, her full skill set isn't shown, but she does use Vorpal Blade, a skill I will describe shortly. These are one-off sequences where you cannot freely use or build her, so the rest of the section will focus on her actual party member skill set. When Sumi permanently joins level 75, she has 4 offensive skills: Kogon, Makogon, Sword Dance, and Vorpal Blade. Kogon costs 12 SP and deals heavy blast damage to one enemy, sporting a very respectable base power for a magic skill. Makogon is a multi-target variant, with a higher cost of 22 SP in exchange for dealing heavy blast damage to all enemies instead of just one. These give her pretty strong magic coverage for exploiting weaknesses and handling enemies that resist physical. Sword Dance costs 21% of her maximum HP and deals colossal physical damage to one enemy with an extremely high 40% critical rate, making it one of the game's best attacks for securing critical knockdowns. However, the base power is noticeably lower than other skills labeled as dealing colossal damage. Vorpal Blade costs 23% of her maximum HP and deals severe physical damage to all enemies, giving her a powerful and consistent AoE option. The individual critical rate is a lot lower at only 10% on each enemy, but the fact that it targets all enemies still makes it pretty reliable for securing at least one crit when fighting large groups. She does not learn any additional offensive skills through level up, though she will learn a very important offensive skill from her third awakening, as Jeff will describe later.
Kasumi's skill list is very barren given how late she joins, and that extends to the amount of passive and support skills that she learns. Just like Akechi in the 3rd semester, she starts out with a full set of 8 skills that she has for her kit, and only learns 1 more outside of the ones that she acquires from Persona Evolution. Regardless, the skills she does have are quite good. In this innate kit, she has Apt Pupil, which is a passive that doubles base crit rate. This is easily one of her best passives, as Kasumi in this game leads a fair bit into the crit specialist archetype. As such, having Apt Pupil is borderline essential for her to perform in her role effectively. She only has 1 innate support skill, that skill being Dia Rahan, which costs 18 SP to heal 1 ally to full HP. Kasumi's SP cap is already the worst amongst the party, and her kit isn't really support oriented compared to other party members, so the skill often won't see much use unless push comes to shove. As for other passives, Kasumi also gets Bless Amp, which is a skill that boosts the damage of all Bless attacks by 50%. While she only gets Amp and not Boost, this is still a solid damage upgrade to her magic attacks, even if in a majority of situations, she's better off fishing for crits with her physical skills. Lastly, we have Kasumi's final innate passive skill, that being Ollie Dance. This skill halves the hit rate of incoming attacks, which is very valuable for a unit with as low endurance stat as hers. On the other hand, Kasumi has a really high agility, which in conjunction with this skill makes her a really good dodge tank. At level 80, Kasumi acquires her final support skill, and only skill she acquires via level up, being Brave Step. It costs 16 SP and adds a flat 7% increase to crit rate for the entire party for 3 turns. Obviously, this skill is best used on physical-focused team comps, while also synergizing nicely with her own kit and playstyle. It's a good support skill for her to have, since it's relatively unique too.
Sumi serves as the Faith Arcana Confidant in this game, and it works a bit differently from the other party member Confidants. As I mentioned before, rank 1 is unlocked automatically near the end of May. Most of her rank up events also give Joker 5 points of maximum HP, which is a nice permanent reward for spending time with her. At rank 2, you unlock Tumbling. This allows Joker to potentially avoid being surrounded whenever enemy ambushes him, which can prevent a bad opening from putting the entire party at a disadvantage. Rank 3 does not grant a new ability, but at rank 4, you get Shen Hook, allowing Joker to use a grappling hook to ambush enemies from farther away. Rank 5 does not grant another ability either, but is still extremely important because it's the initial cap for a Confidant. You need to reach this rank before the late December deadline, or the second half of the link will remain unavailable. Once Sumi's Confidant becomes available again on January 13th, rank 6 unlocks both Follow Up and Fitness Talk. Follow Up gives Sumi a chance to step in with an attack whenever Joker fails to down an enemy on his turn, while Fitness Talk allows her to intervene after a failed shadow negotiation and give you another chance. Rank 7 grants her some recovery, which gives her a chance to cure an ally's ailment at the start of her turn. At rank 8, she gets Endure, giving her a chance to survive an otherwise fatal attack at 1 HP. Rank 9 grants Protect, which gives her a chance to take a fatal attack for Joker. Finally, reaching rank 10 triggers her second awakening. Maxing the Confidant is also required to access their third awakening later. Since you have much less time to complete rank 6 through 10 than you do for most party members, it is worth prioritizing Sumi once the second half becomes available. With that being said, I'll let Jeff explain what her Persona evolutions do.
Like Akechi, Kasumi's Confidant works a bit differently, but definitely functions closer to normal party members compared to his. Kasumi first awakens the Centurion all the way back on October 3rd, way before the 3rd semester even begins. After a brief skirmish with a few shadows in the mysterious palace, she escapes with Morgana and Joker. Although offered, she declines to join the Phantom Thieves and you are unable to utilize her power until the 3rd semester. It's important, however, that you complete her available social link before December 22nd, which is only 5 ranks, as if you don't do it by that deadline, you'll be gated out of both of her new awakenings in the 3rd semester. Throughout the 3rd semester in January, you'll be able to spend a lot of time with Kasumi in order to finally reach the last half of her Confidant. When you do hang out with her 5 more times to increase her link, Kasumi's persona Senjurion will evolve into Vanadis, which comes with a few gameplay benefits. First, her Bless resistance is upgraded into an outright null, meaning she will no longer take damage from any Bless attacks or be affected by their insta-kills. Additionally, she learns the skill Evade Curse, which greatly increases the evasion rate when being attacked with a Curse skill. Unfortunately, this is something we recommend you pass on, given that Kasumi innately has Ollie Dance, which gives a great evasion boost to all incoming attacks. If she's going to be hit by a Curse attack, Evade Curse overrides Ollie Dance and doesn't actually stack with it. Ollie Dance's increase to general evasion is high enough to the point that we don't think it's too necessary to bother with this skill, especially since it also helps dodge Curse insta-kills, of which Evade Curse does not. Additionally, right before the 3rd semester reaches its climax, Kasumi will ask to hang out with you on February 2nd, assuming that you maxed out her social link. If you have, you'll be able to unlock her 3rd and final persona, Ella. This comes with another improvement to her Affinities, as Kasumi now has an additional 50% resistance to nuclear attacks. The main appeal of this awakening, however, is Masquerade, which is Kasumi's 3rd awakening skill that is unlocked the moment her persona evolves. For the cost of 25% of her max HP, this skill does severe damage to one foe twice, while having a relatively high crit rate of 30%. Given that it hits twice and has a high crit rate, Masquerade is unironically one of the stronger physical attacks in this game, and fits Kasumi's role as a crit specialist perfectly. Kasumi's single target damage is one of the best in the game thanks to the skill, and Josh will go into more of the specifics regarding its strengths later. The last gameplay benefit from her awakening is the fact that her persona trait, Veil of Midnight, is upgraded into Veil of Sunrise. While its effect remains the same, that being it prevents knockdowns from critical hits, technical hits, and weakness hits, the chance of activation for the trait goes from 25% to 50%, which is a significant increase and makes the issues with its consistency a lot less apparent compared to Veil of Midnight specifically. It's not surprising that this makes it a much more reliable defensive trait compared to before, while still maintaining the main strength of being applicable to pretty much any party composition that you use.
Because Sumi joins a level 75, her initial build is almost complete from the start. Once she learns Brave Step, we typically replace Diarahan with it due to the abundance of healing items in this game. Though it's not usable in every fight, it's pretty much a lock for the final build as their most unique form of utility. This leaves her with Sword Dance, Vorpa Blade, Kogon, Makogon, Brave Step, App Pupil, Bless Amp, and Ollie Dance, at least for now until her later Persona awakenings. In our opinion, both her single target and multi-target physical and magic skills are worth keeping around for damage flexibility. As for her passive skills, App Pupil and Ollie Dance are some of the absolute best passives in the game, and we think there's really no reason to consider replacing either of them. If you unlock her second awakening, personally, we don't teach Evade Curse in most playthroughs. It could possibly replace Bless Amp, but due to this lack of synergy with Ollie Dance, we don't really think it's worth taking up an entire skill slot compared to a significant buff to her magic damage. After her third awakening when she learns Masquerade, I would replace Sword Dance with it rather than keeping both. Masquerade is simply the better single target damage option despite Sword Dance's higher crit rate, and Vorpa Blade remains as her AoE physical attack. This leaves her final build with Masquerade, Vorpa Blade, Kogon, Makogon, Brave Step, App Pupil, Ollie Dance, and Bless Amp. However, Bless Amp is definitely the most flexible slot and can absolutely be replaced with Arms Master if Sumi is the party member you choose to teach it. Arms Master is obtained from the Jazz Club, and you have to take Sumi there on the evening of January 22nd to teach it to her. We think she's a really great candidate for Arms Master. This is because her low endurance and only average HP give her very little durability for repeatedly paying the HP cost of her physical skills. There are other party members who can definitely utilize it well too though, so it's definitely not required to teach it to her.
In regards to gear recommendations, Kasumi herself has a very limited amount of options given how late she joins. She uses rapiers, and of which there are only 6 in the game, including her innate weapon. Regardless, she has a couple of decent ones that can be bought from Untouchable, most notably the White Snow Rapier with 292 attack, 97 accuracy, and a low freeze chance. In the last palace, you can also acquire the only stat boosting rapier that she has from a palace chest. Said weapon is the Decisive Rapier, and if you can acquire it, it raises endurance by 5, which is a pretty significant increase, and can help cover one of the only areas she struggles statistically in. Her ultimate weapon, the Sword of Sinai 2, is acquired by itemizing Sandalphon during a fusion alarm. It has 365 attack, 95 accuracy, and a high chance to inflict Dizzy, which is a very nice status condition since everything techs off of it. For ranged weapons, Kasumi uses antique rifles, which honestly don't have any notable ones outside of her ultimate weapon, Sahasrara EX. It is acquired by itemizing Ardra during a fusion alarm and has 345 attack, 90 accuracy, and boosts all of her stats by 6, which is a considerable upgrade for her. Given that most of her stats are important to her aside from maybe endurance, we'd highly recommend equipping this weapon if you plan on using Kasumi on your team. As for armor, she has a couple of options that she can use. As per usual, the unisex piece of Cirrus Armor EX is always a good choice. You have to itemize Messiah to acquire it, but it bolsters 330 defense, 10 evasion, and a strong effect that reduces all magic damage by a high amount. However, given that Kasumi is more of a dodge tank, there are arguably some better pieces for her with higher evasion and a more offensive related effect. One such option is the lovely Witch's Robe, which gives 324 defense, 20 evasion, and a boost of 8 magic, which can supplement Kasumi's bless attacks quite a bit. Lastly, we have to move on to accessories, most of which are pretty standard for her. Although hard to acquire, the Bravery Sash from the Foggy Day Challenge battle is a solid choice. If you manage to score 2.5 million points, you're rewarded the accessory which grants Arms Master, having the cost of physical skills. Overall, Kasumi's damage is largely focused on physical crits, and considering she is relatively frail, reducing the cost of her physical skills can be appreciated. Any accessory that grants Ollie Dance or Apt Pupil is unnecessary, considering Kasumi has them innate to her kit. This also applies to the Evade Curse accessory, since not only does she get it innately, it can stack with Ollie Dance as we mentioned prior. Since she doesn't get Charge innately, using the Ring of Pride, which can be upgraded from its weaker variant, the Crystal of Pride, when exploring mementos, can be a viable option. This accessory grants access to a unique skill, Tyrant's Will, granting Kasumi the charge effect to multiply the damage of her next physical attack by 2.5 times. This accessory also grants the effect of Defense Master, which boosts Kasumi's defense for 3 turns at the start of battle. Given that she focuses a lot on crits, having her charge as much as possible is a reasonable decision. If you'd rather give the Ring of Pride to another party member, the Orc Alchemar or Hope Diamond R can also be great options, as boring as they may be. Orc Alchemar boosts all stats by 7 and grants Evade Fizz, which, while not too useful since she has Ollie Dance, will at least give her a bit of a higher evasion rate against physical attacks since Evade Fizz will override Ollie Dance. Regardless, the boost to 7 in all stats is very impactful and the main appeal of this accessory. Hope Diamond R only boosts all stats by 4, but gives Kasumi access to Regenerate 3, which provides her with passive HP recovery every turn, which is nice when she focuses mostly on her physical aspects. The St. Hermeline's badge is an accessory you can acquire from the free bonus items you get in Royal when you open the box at the start of the game. It has the effect of Null, Bless, and Curse, which completely gets rid of Kasumi's only weakness, reversing it into an immunity. While eventually she gets Null Bless herself thanks to her Persona Awakenings, this can still be good early on when she only resists Bless, and even past that point, nulling a party member's only weakness, especially on a fragile one like Kasumi, is a huge boon for her defensive capabilities. Lastly, I'd like to manage the White Band. Kasumi doesn't get Bless Boost innately, but she does get Bless Amp. Although the magic builds are typically a bit more gimmicky than her crit-focused ones, stacking her innate Bless Amp with Bless Boost from the White Band is arguably one of her best options on that front.
We think Sumi could potentially be a very strong and underrated late-game party member, and her biggest strength is definitely her physical damage. She has a high strength stat paired with a very solid collection of physical skills, particularly when her third awakening is unlocked. Masquerade is an extremely powerful skill, giving her one of the highest single target damage ceilings of any party member, and Vorpal Blaze still provides very solid AoE physical damage. Before Masquerade becomes available, Sword Dance gives her very reliable crits, which can make up for its lower base power compared to other late-game physical skills due to the crit damage multiplier. Her extremely limited availability is unfortunate, but she at least joins with most of her important skills already unlocked, and does not need much outside investment before her damage starts standing out. It helps that her natural affinities make her well suited for the only palace she's available for. One of Sumi's most unique strengths is how consistently she can land and enable critical hits. Sword Dance and Apt Pupil make her a reliable critical attacker before Masquerade becomes available, while Brave Step raises the critical rate of the entire party. This increases damage output and creates more opportunities for knockdowns and baton passes for every physical or gun attacker on the team. Brave Step is an especially important niche in the secret boss fight against Lavenza. During a third phase of that fight, the party must land at least one critical hit every turn, or Lavenza will immediately wipe the team with an all-out attack. Brave Step makes that requirement much more consistent, and for that reason, she is highly recommended to be used during this battle if you want to attempt it. While Sumi is primarily a physical attacker, her magic damage is better than initially appears. During a normal playthrough, her magic stat is only decent, so Kogan and Makogan will mostly be used for weakness coverage. In an optimized playthrough, typically New Game Plus, you can use a Jazz Club and other stat boosts to max out the party's magic stats. Once everyone has the same magic, Sumi benefits from the unusually high base power of her Bless skills, which are stronger than most comparable magic skills available to the party. Bless Amp, and potentially Bless Boost from gear, allows them to hit surprisingly hard as a result. She also has the highest agility in the party, letting her set up Brave Step before her allies and attack before most enemies. Alongside Ollie Dance, she is very likely the best dodge tank in the party, which helps make up for her low endurance to give her pretty solid survivability, and is a bit unreliable compared to regular tanking. Overall, Sumi is a much more versatile party member than her stat spread initially suggests.
Kasumi is a solid party member, but she has a couple of weaknesses worth bringing up. Firstly, I'll cut to the chase with her most obvious and detrimental flaw, and that's her availability. Although she awakens a lot earlier in the story, she's not playable until the very last palace in the game, making her have easily the worst availability in the game, even behind Akechi. She gets very limited time to shine, and although she is integral to the story at this part of the game, party member wise she isn't the most appealing, given by this point you probably already have built and set up a final 4 to explore palaces with. Obviously you can still slot her into a physical team pretty easily if you already are using one, but she competes with a fair amount of party members for that last slot, whether it be Haru with her really high gun damage, or a party member like Makoto for supportive purposes. Given how integral crits can be for physical comps, it can still be a good idea to find her a spot on your team. That's also a primary issue with Kasumi's physical damage though. While it is quite good for a single target, a fair amount of her appeals from the damage that her crits provide, which means against enemies immune to crits, namely the final boss of the last palace, her damage will be a little bit stagnant. Regardless, she can still serve as a decent option for the fight for a couple of reasons, but it also helps that she nulls Bless, which is primarily used by said final boss. Outside of crits and knockdowns, Kasumi's utility is also mildly lacking. She only really gets healing, alongside boosting crit by a fair amount, which is solid, but doesn't compare to some late game utility skills that certain party members unlock. Speaking of, her crit boosting capabilities of Brave Step make it a good skill, but it's completely negligible against bosses as well, most notably the final boss of the game once again. This is the only major boss she is available for, and unfortunately her utility isn't too appealing for this fight. I already mentioned that her damage will feel lackluster for the final boss compared to party members like Yusuke and Ryuji on the physical side, or dedicated magic attackers like An, but this also sort of applies for what little of the game she's available for in general. On the topic of other party members, not only would you have been able to build specifically all 3 of these members for a lot longer, but when you do first unlock Kasumi, her damage is somewhat let down by Sword Dance having less base power compared to other colossal damage skills. Obviously her good strength and Masquerade do help amend this, but it's still worth pointing out and shows how much of her kit relies on crits. Lastly, I just wanted to briefly mention her stats. Across the board she is quite good, aside from 3 lacking areas. As we said before, her SP is the lowest in the game, making what little utility she has much less spammable. Additionally, Kasumi's HP, while pretty average, is let down heavily by her endurance, which is very low. Her agility and overall dodge tanking is how she remains a defensively sound party member, but it's worth pointing out that if she does get hit, it's most likely going to hurt a lot.
In our opinion, Ryuji is by far the best party member to pair with Sumi. His Persona trait can directly increase the damage of her physical skills, while Fighting Spirit, his third awakening skill, applies charge to the entire party and gives her an enormous damage boost before she uses Masquerade or Vorpal Blade. He even has the ability to buff the party's attack and inflict shock on enemies to set up tentacles with physical attacks, which helps her damage output even more. Sumi can also help Ryuji by using Brave Step to improve the critical rates of his own physical attacks. She benefits so much from having him on the team, and there's even some mutual benefit, so we see no reason to not pair the two of them together if you're going to use her. Yusuke and Haru are the 2 best choices to round out a Ryuji and Sumi composition for an all-out physical team. Yusuke is generally a little more synergistic because his physical skills benefit from Ryuji's trait, while his ice skills can freeze enemies and create easy physical tentacles and knockdowns. His trait, which increases the party's evasion against physical attacks, stacks with Ollie Dance, which makes Sumi's dodge tank setups even better. Brave Blade also has a very high critical rate of 35% and therefore works well with Brave Step. Haru is arguably a bit more flexible though. Her gun skills can damage some enemies that block physical attacks, her magic damage is typically much better than Yusuke's, and Life Wall provides an excellent safety net for a glass cannon like Sumi. One-shot kill has a 40% critical rate, so it also works extremely well with Brave Step. Either one is a great choice depending on what you personally value more. Since this composition does not have a dedicated healer, however, you'll need to cover party healing with items for boss fights. If you do want a healer instead, Makoto and Morgana are both about equally viable replacements for Yusuke or Haru. We generally think Makoto is a stronger party member overall thanks to her better stat spread, better utility from her defense buffs and checkmate, and her superior magic damage output with Atomic Flare. However, Morgana has arguably better direct synergy with Sumi since Miracle Punch and Miracle Rush can benefit from Brave Step for extremely reliable critical hits. Either one can be a good pairing to round out the team comp with Sumi and Ryuji. An is not a bad pairing at all because she's such a strong party member, but Sumi is not one of her best partners in our opinion. Sumi's magic damage is decent, so her bless skills can benefit from An's Persona trait and high energy, though other party members will typically take better advantage of those effects. An's access to sleep is always useful as well, giving Sumi easy opportunities for tentacle damage. The pairing works perfectly fine, but their kits do not enhance each other as directly as the options above. Akechi is the worst pairing in our opinion from a pure gameplay optimization perspective. His 2 strongest attacks are Rebellion Blade and Levitain by a significant margin. The former is a magic attack and the latter is a physical attack that for some reason is incapable of landing crits, so Brave Step does nothing for his strongest attacks. Also, Sumi does not have any especially expensive support skills that benefit much from the SP reduction of Akechi's Persona trait. In optimized compositions, the 2 of them generally compete for the same party slot, if they are included at all, rather than being used together. That being said, a lot of players won't actually want to use both because of their shared limited availability, and the game forced them together for a certain time period anyways. You are not meaningfully hindering yourself by pairing them, and the combination is still totally viable. The composition we typically recommend for Sumi is to pair her alongside Ryuji and Yusuke.
Kasumi is a bit of an outlier compared to all the other party members we have discussed so far, and that's because she has no game differences from the original Persona 5. Because she didn't even exist in the first Persona 5. Kasumi was added to the game when Royal released, and she is completely a Royal exclusive character. As I said, she doesn't even exist in the original, not as a party member, not as a confidant, and not even as a generic NPC. She's the only case of this happening since no remake of Royal has happened that would give her new light, and as such, this is the only mainline game she has appeared in. With not much else to say, I'll let Josh take it away.
That's about all we have to say about Sumi. If you enjoyed the video or have any thoughts of your own, please leave a like and make sure to comment. I also recommend checking the description if you're not already subscribed to both of our channels. Stay tuned for the next episode of Persona Overview next week on Jeff's channel. We're moving on to the next party member, Ken Amada from Persona 3. Thanks for watching.